Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Tyler Adolfo. I'm 26 years old and I have no friends. This was not always the case. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you the story about how I lost all my friends and how I arrived in the current situation that I find myself in. More specifically, there's three things I'm going to talk about in this video. I don't want to start the story off in the middle of how I lost my friends, which I kind of give the answer to that in the title, Diagnosis of Bipolar Disorder. But I want to start the story in the beginning so that you have that context of where I was at. So I'll be starting off with telling you where I was at in college in terms of the social circles that I engaged in. Then I'm going to tell you about how bipolar disorder very quickly destroyed those existing social circles that I had. And then I'm going to end with telling you the kind of lessons I've learned to experience and share what I kind of appreciate from the experience, how I've made the best of a bad situation. As a fortune cookie that I read recently said, you can always make the best of a bad situation. Diamonds are made from coal. Well, we got a whole bunch of coal on our hands here, and we're going to try to find the diamond by the end of this video, so stay tuned. So starting off, going into college, I was engaging in an active, healthy, social lifestyle. I quickly took on some extracurriculars so that I could form some friendships in college so that I wouldn't be alone, because who wants to be alone? Nobody truly enjoys loneliness. We all seek that sense of belonging. And the way I sought my sense of belonging was joining clubs that interested me so that I could meet like-minded people who shared similar interests. I ended up trying out for and successfully making it onto the university mock trial team, which I was super ecstatic about because it was highly competitive. There were a lot of people who went to the tryouts, and all in all, only about 26 people, myself included, ended up making it onto the team. And this was a great experience because then over the course of that freshman year of college for me, I was able to form close friendships with people who I was working with day in and day out on drafting case affidavits and cross-examinations. And mock trial as a club in general is just so much fun. And you create lots of positive, long-lasting memories through that experience. The other club that I joined to make friends was actually student government. I ran for the student senate and won a seat in the student senate. I got appointed to the finance committee, and then I got appointed to the faculty senate program and budget council. So, lots of good stuff to put on the resume. Some solid stuff to put on the resume there for sure. So through student government, I also made some friends. And from these two clubs, freshman year, mock trial and student government, I had people who, if I wanted to, grab a bite to eat with, there was somebody I could do that with. If I wanted someone to go to the student rec center / gym with, there was someone that I could do that with. And then, of course, COVID hit, and I'm going to kind of fast forward through this because I think we all know what happened during COVID. I don't think any of us were able to really keep our relationships going to the degree that they were before COVID. COVID interrupted a whole lot for a lot of us. So during COVID, I went home from university, stayed inside. But then the spring semester of college in 2021, I returned to campus. And I was, again, seeking a sense of belonging. I was no longer on the mock trial team or student government anymore. A lot of those things had moved to completely online. And I wanted something that was in person. I felt like the whole COVID thing was kind of going on for too long of a time, extended. And I wanted something that was in person so that I can feel that social connection with other people again. So I actually decided to rush a fraternity. And, I got to meet a bunch of the guys at this college fraternity, Kappa Sigma, hit it off really well. And they offered me a bid to pledge the fraternity. So I pledged the fraternity. And over the course of that spring 2021 semester, I successfully pledged that fraternity and was officially initiated on April 24th of 2021. So that's where my new group of belonging and friends came from. That's where I now derived my sense of belonging, sense of connection, sense of peer approval from. But things took an interesting turn. And by an interesting turn, I mean a tragic turn. Because the following semester, which would be my junior year of college, fall of 2021, I started to experience my first symptoms of mania. And originally, my mania manifested in things like, fast, accelerated, pressured speech, flight of ideas, where I had very disorganized thinking. And, I had disturbances to my sleep where I would be awake for days at a time, at one point as long as 5 days at a time. So for those who don't know what mania is, it's a stage of bipolar disorder. I have bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. I didn't know that I had this condition at this moment in time, but I started experiencing symptoms of the manic stage, which is a stage where you feel either euphoric and like you're on top of the world, or, paranoid and terrified of everybody. And I had a mixture of both. I had a blend of each of the two. And when these symptoms started kicking in initially, it was in many ways to my benefit. I kind of became this super sociable person while I was in mania. And I also developed a strong sense of humor and became extremely comedic. I don't know how exactly. It's not like I was like binge watching comedy or anything or doing anything to justify having such a sudden sense of humor, but that's exactly what happened. I was making people laugh all of the time. I was very sociable and outgoing and highly confident. And you're probably wondering, well, what's the bad in that? And the truth is there is nothing bad in that. But things took a turn for the worse because the symptoms of mania that I was experiencing exacerbated into something that was detrimental to my psychological health to a severe degree. And that is, I started to experience delusions and hallucinations. So what originally started off as me being super sociable and confident as a result of mania, I now started to become more isolated and scared. I felt paranoid about everybody around me. I had a hallucination where I would go out back behind the frat house where I was living in, and I would have phone calls on the phone with people that do not even exist, as scary as that might sound. And I had delusions of grandeur that developed, where I felt like I was related to the Kennedy family, and I thought that people were out to assassinate me in the same way that people have the Kennedys. And of course, this is all, nonsensical stuff. None of this was true. These were just illusions. This was just all information inside of my head, figments of my imagination, but I believed them to be true. And when other people weren't believing me about the things that I was saying, I started lashing out at them. So on my social media, I actually started tagging in posts members of the mock trial team who I stayed in touch with, members of the student government I stayed in touch with, members of my fraternity. And I would just demonize them on social media. And it's completely antithetical to who I am as a person, because I'm someone who's always tried to avoid conflict, and now suddenly out of nowhere, I'm just deliberately going out of my way to go after people. But it's all because of what's going on inside of my head, because of the illness that I'm experiencing, these symptoms of mania, the delusions and the hallucinations. In particular, I had a strong delusion that members of my own fraternity were Nazis. And so I started accusing them online of being Nazis. And so all this antagonistic behavior escalated and only became worse with time. And As my social media postings became darker, people grew more and more concerned about me. And there were actually 2 hospitalizations, both kind of by force, that I ended up having to undergo. The first hospitalization was when I started having paranoid symptoms. So I hadn't quite gone after everybody yet. But I went to Cooley Dickinson Hospital for 5 days. And during that 5-day stay there, people were so concerned about me. So many people came and visited me in the hospital, doing things that friends would do. You know, I had a friend from the fraternity who came and brought me a gift basket of a whole bunch of things, of, clothes that he no longer needed. And, I think he had like items of chocolate and other things. Something that I greatly appreciated later on, but in the moment I was so out of it that it was hard for me to really appreciate anything that anybody was doing for me. So that first hospitalization, people were there for me, but things changed. I ended up leaving the hospital more manic than when I entered it. And that's a topic for another video about how the psych ward made my mania worse. I ended up leaving the psych ward with no medications, with no treatment plan in place, and my mania only intensified. And then that's when I started really, really going after people. And I ended up getting into a little bit of legal trouble. Thankfully, now it's resolved. I was found not guilty, and that's a topic for another video as well. But I basically got into a fight while I was manic. And one of the conditions of my release from jail initially was that I seek treatment for my mental health and get an evaluation. So this was the second hospitalization, which was also kind of forced because if I didn't go, I would have been arrested and so forth. And at this point in time, nobody was talking to me. Everybody had distanced themselves from me. I had nobody I could turn to, and I was experiencing loneliness for the first time I had in years. It certainly wasn't a new feeling. I've experienced loneliness. I've experienced regret. And when I started treatment after the second hospitalization and I started coming out of this manic episode, I started to realize my delusions for what they were, delusions. I started to realize my hallucinations for what they were, hallucinations. And I realized that I was, in fact, not related to the Kennedy family. I started to realize that these phone calls that I had with people with a military general did not exist. There was no military general that I spoke to on the phone. It was all in my head. I fell into a deep depression and I had nobody to go to because my friends, I don't want to use the word abandoned, because in their shoes, I probably would have done the same thing. Lots of people aren't familiar with bipolar disorder. I wasn't familiar with it myself. And there's only so much a friend can take. And when you're lashing out at the very friends who help you, the ones who visited you in the hospital, I mean, how can you possibly expect them to stand in your corner and be by your side when you're doing those things? So I don't pass judgment on my friends for moving on by any means. But I just wanted to clarify that, at this point in time, I didn't have anybody to go to. And I entered a 2-year period of social isolation. And in these 2 years, I've had to face that hardship of being alone, of not having anybody to go to. So when I regret things I did, now that I know so much about what I did, I would love the opportunity to speak to some of the people who I used to be friends with and say, hey, this is what happened. This is why I said this. This is why I said that. But so much time has passed, I just don't see it as a realistic possibility. Although, of course, if I ever run into any of them in person, I'll probably give them an abridged version of the story, so one less person in the world doesn't think I'm completely nuts. But yeah, so I want to add, too, that this isn't the first time I've experienced this, the condition I'm in now of having no friends. This was the case for me in middle school. I had no friends and was chronically absent and super depressed and highly anxious. So this is something I have experience in, and that I'm now accumulating more experience in. But as I said at the beginning of the video, you can make the best of a bad situation. And 2 things I've learned in particular from this experience. Number one, through all the moments alone, I've learned to love myself, to respect myself. 'Cause I know, regardless of what other people say, that I'm an awesome person and I like who I am. And I could say that even as somebody who is depressed, because I know I'm not perfect. But again, who is? Tell me the name of a perfect person. You're not going to find one. Another lesson I've learned is to not be too hard on myself. It's hard for me not to laugh about everything that happened because it kind of just came out of nowhere. And because of how tragic it is, in some slight way, it makes it funny to me. And I know that's probably a harsh thing to say, but you got to be able to laugh at these type of situations in order to move on. At least that's what the case is for me. I consider humor, I've said this before, I consider humor to be a crucial part of my treatment plan. And one third element, this isn't something I've learned, but something I've come to appreciate more is my family. This experience of losing all my friends has brought me significantly closer to my family. I realize now more than ever how much I appreciate them, and I wouldn't trade them for any friendship in the world, truly. So, am I happy with where I am? Of course not. Do I plan to be in this place forever? Of course not. But this is the status of where I am right now. There's no reason to lie about it. I'm 26 years old, and that's my story. My name is Tyler Adolfo, and I have no friends. Except for you all, of course, watching this video. And if you're watching this video, please hit that like button. I know, shameless transition. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I appreciate you sticking around. The channel's been growing very fast. Been experiencing some exponential growth relative to my channel's standards of growth. So I just want to say I greatly appreciate all of the support on all of the videos, and there'll be so much more videos to come. If you keep watching, I'll keep uploading. So that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have an extraordinarily excellent day. Peace out, y'all.